After Burke reminded me that we did this last year, I went back and looked at the tape and made sure we were looking at the same four worksheets that we had last year. And I believe you have all of these since last Friday. The first one that we have is a page out of the audit, which isn't published yet, but this page will be in the final version. It compares the original budget, the final budget, and the actual amounts, or actual expending and revenues for the year. And as you can see in that third column, which has the actual amounts in it, we had a net result for the year of decreasing fund balance of $1,750,000. $1,475,000 of that is on the transfer line, up a little higher, and that went into our two capital projects this year and was planned in the CIP budget. So beyond that, we did have another couple $100,000 that we reduced fund balance through this year's operations. If we move on to the next page, you'll see some of the revenue accounts that either did very well or didn't do so well this year. I pointed out some of the biggest variations that we had, and you can see those on this page. We have interest on investments, street services, those are both internal and external services that we provide. Engineering fees were all above the expected amounts in the budget. These other accounts all came in less than we anticipated. The biggest one at the bottom is our permits. We had a real downturn in permits last year. They've been actually sliding a little bit for the last couple of years. And so that was our largest decrease that we had, or largest variation that we had. The next page we have is expenses. And again, we picked out some of the places where we saved the most money or went over the furthest. I think most of the savings are probably from positions that were open through at least a portion of the year, positions that didn't get filled at all. And then you get into the budgets that were over. I know we had some, like personnel, for example, which is the first one on the list. A large portion of theirs was advertising. We charged the entire advertising budget for advertising for positions into their account, so they really have very little control over that. It fluctuates from year to year depending on which positions are open. We had some insurance budgets that came in over budget this year. We set those budgets back in August in the preliminary budget, and the rates are actually set in January and February, so we are taking an educated guess when we put those together, and so we had some expenses in there that came in higher than we expected. The uncollectible accounts, we had some large ambulance write-offs and personal property tax bills that were in there. That's the biggest portion of those. And police and fire, I think, are primarily in the wage categories. If we go to the next page, we see how the fund balance has changed over the last few years. I show at the top the actual fund balance. I then show the total budget and the operating budget and show what percent fund balance is of each of those. And you can see the decline we've had the last several years. I believe the fund balance has dropped about 35% since 2003. Again, most of that is with planned expenditures for the safety building and other things that we've had in the CIP. So those are the 4 slides I have for the financial report. I don't know if you have any questions at this time or want to save them for later.
Mr. McHugh?
Ed, on you said the police and fire overruns were wage categories. Would you explain that, please?
Both of those departments have the ability for some of their staff to contribute some of their sick leave accumulation the last 3 years that they're here into the ICMA account, their 457 account, rather than a payout at the end. That's a portion of both of those budgets. I think overtime is a portion, at least in the police budget, And I know in the fire budget, we also had more retirements, terminations than were anticipated, and those all cost you money when you pay out the retiring individual. We did have in the police also, we discovered a actually formula problem in the original budget that was submitted by the police department, and the retirement line was underfunded or under budgeted in there because of the formula on a spreadsheet that we used to put that together. So we found that we were actually short in that retirement account in the police department.
Okay,
That was
thank you.
another big chunk of that.
Ms. Sharman?
On the 2005 revenue one, those are the revenues from 2005. I mean, those are
Correct.
actual. If fines and permits have been going down for the last couple of years, do you then go in 2006 and revise those, since there's somewhat of a history there, so we're not over planning our dollars?
If it appears that it's going to continue that way, yes, we would try and eventually revise to a lower level of when we budget.
And when do you revise? Do you revise mid-year, or?
No, we would do it annually at the budget time. So depending on how, for example, 2005 looked like it was going when we actually started putting the budget together for 2006, we may have anticipated that it was going to come back in the last half of the year and may still have, and I didn't look back at this, we may still have 2006 higher than the 2005 level would make you normally project. But you know, I didn't look to see what we did put in 2006. But eventually, if we see several years where it's trending down, unless there's some reason to expect it to go back the other way, we will trend the budget down also.
So we only do this, we only look at trending down revenues or even expenses once a year? We don't look at them mid-year and make adjustments?
Well, we only adopt the budget once a year.
Right.
So we don't necessarily change our budget for anything along the way. We may analyze revenues as we start getting into, especially the preliminary budget or any other time of the year, but we don't come to the council and adjust the budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Tower?
Yeah, a comment and then a couple of questions here. First thing is, could you provide us in our packets next week with a 8.5 by 11 copy of this first table?
Sure.
Some of us have a little trouble reading that first table, and I think that's an absolutely critical table because that's where all the summary information is, and it's difficult. Now, if I could, so if we just have at least the first one, somebody else wants other ones, that's fine. But
Sure, we can set that
so
up.
what we're saying is that at the end of the year, we ended up in a deficit position by 1.7 and took it out of the fund balance? Is that in essence what we're saying here?
Yes, but we're saying 1.475 of that was planned.
Okay. That's all for now.
The 1.475 was for the safety building remodeling, and it was also for the restrooms, I believe it was, at Opera Square. The council made that decision to take that out of fund balance. So
Opera Square or Leach?
Riverside.
Leach, excuse me,
Yeah.
for the amphitheater. So those were actual amounts that were, the council made that decision to take those from fund balance.
Okay. So we're still operating at the deficit position.
Right, but not as... Mr. McHugh?
Ed, is it advantageous for the city to allow prematurely dumping your money, your sick leave money into the ICMA?
Well, I don't know if I'd say it's advantageous, but I
I mean,
don't.
why do we do it? Why do we allow that?
I believe the supervisor's contractual arrangement has it as an option.
For all city employees?
It's in the labor contracts for the police and fire.
Just police and fire?
Correct.
Thank you.
Ms. Maddox?
Question, under court fines, why are the revenues down and where do we, what is the source of these? Are these like traffic citations or?
I believe these are any of our cases that go to the county court and are processed through them. They aren't our parking tickets or anything else that the police department would issue and administer through the county courts. And why they're down, I can't exactly tell you. That's just whatever we receive back from the county goes through this account.
So does this say we're a better law-abiding community than we predicted?
I can't tell you if we aren't making as many, or issuing as many citations, or if there aren't as many violations. You know, I don't know exactly what the cause would be. I can only tell you that this is all that's being processed through the county.
Thank you.
Mhm.
See no other lights for you, Ed. Thank you.